What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. So let me say this first and get it out the way. Okay. Um, what Patrick Beverly did last night was disgusting, in my opinion. Okay. Um, a person can argue that, maybe, look, the emotions of the situation got the best of him, yada yada yada. Yeah, I mean I can understand that, man, but it's no place for that shit, man. Even back in the old school days when, what I'm saying, you had the physical defenses and people got into fights, it was always like one on one. See, the reason why I look at that shit a certain type of way is because what made the Kermit Washington incident so fucked up, even though I know there was a racial element to it, let's be real. It was a little racial element to it. But what made it fucked up was that Rudy Tom Chalmers didn't see it coming. So it's perceived as a cheap shot that nearly killed him. And that's why Kermit Washington, if I'm not mistaken, that was the beginning of the end of his NBA career. Now, I'm not going to compare that to Kermit Washington. And yeah, Chris Paul said something to him. But if you're going to do something, say, hey, motherfucker, and then, do the fuck you got to do. To push somebody or do anything when they're not looking, that's cowardly shit, man. That's some coward shit. And when you look at the history of this guy, Russell Westbrook, some people could tell you that he tried to intentionally injure Russell Westbrook. Look what he did to Devin Booker. And then look at last night. Yes, Patrick Beverly brings energy and all that type shit, but there's a lot of other shit that he brings that you don't need in basketball. You know what I'm saying? And I like the energy and the tenacity, but I don't like cheap shot artists. That's coward shit. You know what I'm saying? Look, I know that people get frustrated. Um, he was beginning to, I mean, he probably already realized the game was over. They've been eliminated. Plus, the individual situation for him or matchup, he was getting embarrassed. Chris Paul scored 30 points in the second half, and it was just, I get it. You have your reputation is that you are a defensive stopper, and on that particular night, you didn't look like one. Nothing that you did was working. But that happens to every great defender. You're going to have nights when the offense is just better than your defense. Bill Russell once had Wilt drop 62 points on him. Michael Jordan got cooked by LeBradford Smith. Kobe had Gilbert Arenas drop 60 on him one time. Gary Payton got cooked a lot. It happens. Even Big Ben Wallace and Matumbo got dunked on. They had some guys, some no name motherfucker drop 25 on them or some shit. You know, it happens. Um, but you don't let that shit get to the point where you do some shit like that, man. I just don't like. If he was looking at Chris Paul, I was like, yeah, fuck it. If Chris Paul could anticipate it, that'd be one thing. But I don't like that shit, man, because it could lead to injuries and other shit. Um, but anyway, get into the game. Phoenix came into this LA, the Staples Center, and beat them 130 to 106. I didn't see that coming. What I mean by that is I didn't see a blowout victory by Phoenix in this game. I thought Phoenix was probably going to lose, or if they did win, it would be a close, you know, 2, 3, 4 point victory. Um, Phoenix blew it open in the second half. Really, Chris Paul blew it open. Tied his career playoff high with 41 points. Had, I believe, 4 rebounds, 8 assists, 3 steals, no turnovers. 7 of 8 from 3-point range. I mean, just a masterful performance after a couple of bad shooting performances by Chris Paul. But he did what a great player does, and that is when you're on the road in a situation where your team needs you to step up, he mustered up a great performance. And you have to take your head off to him, man. Um, I believe he is the second oldest player in playoff history to drop 40 points in a game. The oldest being Karl Malone, who dropped 50 against the Sonics back in 2000. I remember watching that game on NBC. Remember Malone hit a three in that game too. That's when you know he was on fire, when Karl Malone dropping threes and shit. Uh, I believe Chris Paul also passed Michael Jordan for 11th place in career assists. Now, when you think about that, Michael Jordan career assists. Michael was not just a guy that shot the basketball. He was and could be a playmaker. But he also played in 179 playoff games, so that did pad his assist totals a bit. But still, he passed Michael Jordan for 11th place. And by the time the playoffs are over, I think Chris Paul will safely be in the top 10 all time in assists in playoffs. Um, Go away from Chris Paul for a moment, talk about the Clippers. The Clippers have nothing to be ashamed of. This is, uh, you know, the farthest has ever been in the playoffs, the first time they made it to the Western Conference Finals. Without Kawhi Leonard, by the way, this time Kawhi Leonard was on the bench. So, pretty sure Ticket TV's message got to him. Um, you know, Paul George, I think, had 21 points. Morris had 26, but it just wasn't enough. It just wasn't enough. But you do wonder if Kawhi Leonard was healthy, whether this would have been that would have been a difference maker in the series. I tend to think it would have been. But still, we give credit to the team that won. This is Phoenix's third trip, and I believe 53 years. I think they came aboard in '68 as a franchise. So this is their third NBA Final appearance in 53 years. The first one being in 1976, which was less than a decade after they debuted as a franchise. And that finals, they played the Boston Celtics, who at that time were led by players such as John Havlicek and who else was on the team? Dave Cowens and JoJo White. And in one of those games, they had an epic, was it game five? The triple overtime game. One of the no. It was game six, I think. One of the great uh, finals games of all time. Went down to the wire, played the game with the triple overtime. Ultimately, Boston won that game in the series. In 1993, of course, that's when the Phoenix Suns, led by Charles Barkley, Kevin Johnson, Mark West was on that team, Richard Dumas, a young promising star whose career was derailed by drug abuse. Uh, I believe Tom Chambers was on that team. Who else was on that team? Uh, 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 Damn, can't think of who else was on that team. Um, Dan Marley. Forgetting somebody. Danny Ainge. But anyway, that team played the Chicago Bulls, and ultimately the Chicago Bulls won that series in six. Jordan averaging 41 points a game for that series. So this is the third NBA Finals that they've been to, and they hope that third time will be the charm. As far as Chris Paul is